Hello everyone, I am Ariel D. Johnson, majoring in air traffic control, and today my presentation will be on the impacts of post-air traffic control academy on fresh controllers, stress levels, and predisposition to suicide. So to get started, I don't want to hop right into the presentation. I just want to take a moment to give you guys the definition of air traffic control. And the definition of air traffic control, or ATC if you want to abbreviate it, is the primary purpose is to prevent collisions, organize and expedite the flow of air traffic control, and to provide information and other support for pilots. So to become an air traffic controller, you first must go to Air Traffic Control Academy. And one of the major schools for Air Traffic Control Academy is in Oklahoma City, and that is through the FAA. So going into the Air Traffic Control Academy, you first must know that there is a 50% drop rate. Therefore, you must know that if you want to go to the academy, that there should be no games played. You should go there with a set mind that you want to become a controller, and you will do anything that it takes and everything that it takes to study hard and make sure that your grades are good, and make sure that you pay attention to your classwork. And so yeah, making little mistakes could cause you to drop out of Air Traffic Control Academy. So there you will learn everything you need to know, and then get certified if you make it through the 6 months. So after, you will have to take a test, and basically that will tell you what airport you're going to. So if you score the highest in your class, then you will get to pick your airport. But if not, you will have to write down 3 airports. For example, say one of them could be Miami International Airport. You will write that down, and then you will write down 2 more. And from there, they will start picking. So say if you're third on the list, so the first person, they pick Miami International Airport. Then it goes down to the second one. Say the second person picks the airport that you wanted, and then it goes down to the third one, which is you. And thank God, they picked 2, but you're the third one, so you get to pick the airport you want to go to. So the last person, they may not get that opportunity. They may have to go to the airport that nobody wanted, and that's sometimes, well, that is the case. So yeah, you just got to make sure that you're aware. And after that, you will get sent to the airport to start working. There are 2 hypotheses that I have, but I really want to focus on one, which is the occupational stress will decrease as more air traffic controllers transition from small airports to international airports. And I feel as if every time I tell someone that I want to become an air traffic controller, they always say, oh my gosh, the job is so stressful, which is true, but that comes with any job or anything that you do. There will always be some type of stress level, whether it's good or bad, dealing with the job. And especially going out of Air Traffic Control Academy, it is kind of nerve-wracking to go into a huge international airport such as Miami International Airport. So with my hypothesis, I would like for post-air traffic control students to go to smaller airports where there is more encouragement for them, instead of working at a fast-paced airport such as Miami International Airport. Not only is it stress level, but it also comes with depression. It comes with stuff probably not even at the job, probably at home. You have to become your air traffic controller working in the airport. Not only do you have to rely on yourself, you also have to rely on your colleagues. You guys have to band together to make sure that the air traffic and the flow of things are separated and things are running smoothly. And if you aren't getting good sleep at home, if you're depressed, if you're stressed out, that can cause something to go wrong at the workplace, or you to have an attitude at the workplace where it shouldn't be. So those are also things to think about when becoming an air traffic controller, and why so many air traffic controllers commit suicide. Suicide is known for the fundamental health disorder all around the world, mainly because it is the third cause of deaths, and the risk of suicide could be the psychological disorders or sociobiological factors. Bilson reported that the risk factors associated with suicide in patients suffering from depression included severe anxiety and environment factors such as occupational stress. So some of the occupational stress could be human environment interactions. It could be making snap decisions near collision or a loss of control, ergonomical radar display, or even information interactions. And even for some air traffic controllers, it could be nightmares, and nightmares stem from post-traumatic stress disorders when they lose control and they have these near collision experiences that could stem post-traumatic stress and make them vulnerable to suicide. And even though some don't take these actions, but even just being vulnerable to suicide, you do have suicidal thoughts, and you do have some type of depression or anxiety that may stem from working at the job, and may cause even some people to not only think about it, but to commit suicide because the job is so stressful. The concept of Post Air Control Academy encompasses learning environment that aim to support the fresh air controllers in adapting to their job requirement in smaller airports before transferring to larger airports. And what I mean by that is what I've stated before. Going into international airports is very fast-paced, rapid, and high stress levels, whereas going into a smaller airport would be lower pace, and the stress level will be less. So that's one of the things I wanted to point out. And also going into the smaller airports, you'll be able to climb the ladder. And then even if you do mess up, you have mentors around you to where they will be able to catch it if you didn't catch something. Whereas going into bigger airports, you have so many things to worry about that you may not have that mentor looking after you. And that one mistake could cause a near collision. And so also, like I pointed out, the mentor, so executive skills would be enhanced and developed, and emotionally stable for air traffic controllers. So since you already have that mentor, and since you are being encouraged every day, even if you messed up, that you're gonna learn and you're gonna get better as you grow, as you climb the ladder. So just having that role model in the smaller airport would be great. And also the supportive adults, the vets that have already been there, like I said before. Just having them, just talking to the pilot, just having the support system, I feel like it's going to be great, and it's a great way for the Post Air Control Academy to shine. So the introduction of the Post Air Control Academy is for controllers or freshly controllers to have the probability to execute and learn in the smaller airports, and then take their experience and move it into a bigger airport. And so from that, we have to get into the study design and the participants. And so the study design or the population focus on fresh controllers and experienced air controllers in a smaller airport and those in a bigger airport. And so the study aimed at drawing meaningful conclusions on the suitability of heading to an academy and working throughout the ranks into bigger airports and directly joining the bigger airport upon certification. And so the key aspect under consideration, including the experience of support system, the workload comprehension in smaller and bigger airport, and the ability of meaningful relationships that can be used by fresh air controllers as a basis of enhancing their executive skills. So a total of 5 airports form the Post Air Control Academy, and 3 major airports were selected for the study. And the study was carried out on workers within the selected airports, with a total of 50 agreeing to participate in the study. The study participants were collected from the emails, the URLs, and it was a linked self-administered questionnaire. And so the questionnaire, it was designed to like address specific related factors of increased risk of suicide, basically. So some of the questions, or the questions based off of questions, could be the suicidal ideation, the marital status, education and experience working as an air traffic controller. And so like were some of the controllers, did they think they were suitable enough to go straight into the bigger air traffic controller immediately after graduation, or do they think that the alternative should have been working in smaller airports before proceeding to working in bigger airports? And the data that was collected from the participant, so the question related to the suicidal ideation focused on the two aspects, which is working in a larger airport and the difference between working in a smaller airport. In regards, the participants had to answer, as you guys know, a series of questions, but those series of questions asked, did you think about suicide, or have you ever thought about committing suicide? And if they answered yes, I have thought about committing suicide, and then they would have to answer another set of questions, which was, have you thought about committing suicide this year? And also, those names are yes, solidify, I'll admit it. And so then we get into the responses, and if the responses were from 1 to 5, and 1 being totally agreeable and 5 being very very much. And so as you guys could probably tell, the bigger air traffic control towers or airports answered about saying that yes, I have thought about committing suicide, and I have thought about committing suicide this year. So that is a big problem. And also they had to ask a question about what triggered them thinking about suicide. Was it the family related? Was it lack of support system, networks, or was it like work related? So then we also have to get into that, and what can fall into play with that. Coming from work related would be the post-traumatic stress, and then coming from home could be the nightmares or marital problems. So that all falls into play on why an air traffic controller would think about suicide. Not even in the small airports, but the bigger airports too, because there could be a lack of communication, a lack of support, and also a smaller airport, whereas in the bigger airport, they have more communication and more support. So it all depends on where you are and who you're working with and how well you get along with your colleagues. From there, from the email and the URL and the questionnaire that was sent out, and we sent it to 50, and 45 of the 50 questionnaires were sent back, and then also had to do collect the data, make sure there were no gaps, and make sure no errors from the questionnaire. And from there, we answered the hypothesis. In the present study, the respondents respond in relation to suicidal ideation was assessed on the basis of 2 responses, a yes and a no. So while the non-responders catered for the group of respondents who preferred to respond to the question due to factor and unknown to the researchers, in large portion of the respondents, over 60%, had thought of committing suicide while in the term of the past year, and the number of such individual was 77%. And in this regard, it was concluded, or it can be concluded, that the large portion of respondents, in this case ATC, had thought about committing suicide, irrespective of their level of experience, in this case, in the duration as an air traffic controller has worked. And the present study findings that air traffic control are risk factors to commit suicide based on their thought process both in the last year and throughout their whole career. Figure 2 provided findings of the triggers for suicide ideation among air traffic controllers that work within airports with larger air traffic. In this regard, 83% of the respondents' trigger for suicidal ideation was attributed to work-related pressures, compared to 12% whose reason for committing suicide are linked to personal shortcomings and such as inability to cope or adapt to the workplace environment. Meanwhile, 5% of the respondents' causes of suicidal ideation were attributed to family issues, the fact that there is also deposit by the fact that 50% of the respondents are married. The finding concurred with studies by Zier on the workload and psychological stress reaction in air traffic controllers indicate that 10 or 15% the air traffic controller shows elevated values of psychological systems to extent indicating that they have serious stress problems at work and in their private lives. So that could be, like they said, at work or in their private lives, coming into work from their private lives, going home from work to their private lives. Working at the airport was assumed to determine the impact of a workplace environment and contribution to stress. A large portion of the respondents, 44%, totally agreed that the large airport and high traffic rate compared to smaller traffics, but in relation to volume of work, smaller airport had low volume compared to large airports. The similarity of 44% of respondents totally agreed that the large airports lack support system compared to 33% who agreed. The variation in acceptance can be contributed or attributed to differences among airport and the type of employer. So due to the volume of work, the workload and stress response in large airport were also higher compared to smaller airports. The study agreed with Bushler and One's finding that linked suicidal ideation to external factors such as stress in regards to the volume of work at an airport that played a significant role in increasing the risk factors towards committing suicide. So saying all that and making sure that I have my facts and everything right, and from my hypothesis where I stated that working at a smaller airport would be better than working at a bigger airport. My hypothesis was right. Working at a smaller airport would be the ideal conclusion. My hypothesis was right. Working at a smaller airport would be the best instead of going into a bigger airport, based off of the questionnaire that I did, and also having less stress, climbing the ladder, emotional support, having a role model, being actually emotionally balanced, emotionally stable before going into the larger airports, working your way up into those positions instead of going into those positions head first. So with all that, that has to, you have to take that into accountability. You also have to take into accountability the Post Air Control Academy, which is where you go into smaller airports talking to pilots that also need training, and that will also help you grow and to excel, and then climb the ladder and go into bigger airports and know what you're doing while you're in bigger airports. So therefore, you won't have depression, you won't have nightmares, you won't think about committing suicide, and you won't think about taking your life. Or one of your friends may be working at air traffic control. One of them might take their life, and you might have post-traumatic stress from that and from the collisions. Everything comes with a price working with ATC, but your health comes first and foremost. And so if you're not healthy, how are you going to make sure that the pilot and the people on the plane are getting to their spots or their destination safely? So first, before you're thinking about the suicidal thoughts and still coming to work, another solution would be to speak to a counselor or speak to one of your friends, someone you can confide in about the situation, about you thinking about suicide first, and then taking the steps you need to get better. So thank you all for tuning in and watching my presentation. And if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask. Thank you.